The theme for the first meetup of this new season is org design, and most organizations try to create a structure that allow for efficient decisions, clear responsibilities, fast delivery, and yet no two organizations are the same. Each organization is organized differently, and they have distinct structures. They divide responsibilities in a different way. And today we're going to talk about some ways the organizations can be organized, org design. Today we're going to have two speakers, Agnes and Vidas, who's going to tell us their stories. And if you want to, and if you have any questions for them during the presentations, please write down those questions in the YouTube chat. I'll read them to the presenter after their presentation, and you're going to hear the answers that way. And so now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Agnius and let him tell his story.
Okay, hello. I'll share my screen. And someone tell me when it's ready, when you see the screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
That's really good. So, big pleasure to be here. It's my first online presentation in a meetup. So it's new experience for me. I work in Visma, Lietuva, to be precise. And I have joined Visma 9 years ago as a software developer, and now I'm a development department manager. And Visma actually gave me an opportunity, and that opportunity is to be part of building the company from scratch. And always to build something from scratch is always exciting, but at the same time it's a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibilities, because your decisions in the first place they impact how the company, whether it will succeed or not. And as you see from the slides, my presentation is about no management. I'm pretty sure you are not all aware with this term. So I'll try to explain what I mean by it. And at the same time, you'll have a sneak peek into how we organize things in Visma Lietuva. I'll start from a bit far away from aviation because that's my hobby. And now imagine if the plane would be your company, then which part of the plane would be managers? Is it like wings, cockpit, or a tail, or wheels? Actually, I think it would be plane's engines, because managers, they lead, they motivate people, they show example, they inspire people. They also lead teams or the whole company to the right direction, like these engines. But what would happen if the plane would lose its engines? And what would happen if the company would lose its managers? Of course, something terrible. Like an airplane would crash, likewise, the company would perish. But is it so? Isn't it possible for an airplane to fly without engines? And isn't it possible for a company to flourish without managers? In Visma, we follow no management principles. That means we have moved as much decisions as possible to our employees. At this point in Visma, we are 3 full-time managers, which is fairly small amount compared to our company size, which is now 350 people in total. And if we would follow traditional business management books, it would be written that for such company you need 40 full-time managers. But why we are striving to find ways how to operate without managers, and why it is important for us. When we were 14, we still didn't have a full-time manager. Our managing director was doing active software development at that time. And finally, when we grew beyond 14, our managing director switched to full-time management. So our experience is that the company of 14 employees can perfectly operate without managers. And just think of that kind of companies, whether you are working in such kind of company or you have worked before, how many managers you have or had. Usually such companies even has their president and some vice presidents. And some companies even don't start their business without having head of HR or head of marketing. So there are lots of gains when you operate without managers, or at the least number you can do without managers. And I'll present some of them. What are the benefits? So firstly, employees become more motivated. Seasoned employees know very well what decisions to make in certain situations, and it demotivates them if managers take decisions for them. And we all know that motivated employees are much more productive than demotivated. Secondly, organizations as a whole start taking better and faster decisions, because absence of a management layer, absence of management layer allows to take decisions faster. There is, no layers, and the decisions are not distorted. And usually in hierarchical organizations, managers' decision is the final one. But is it always a correct one? Maybe manager is short-sighted, and maybe it's important for him or her to secure yearly bonuses. The third benefit is economical one. By reducing the amount of managers, you can distribute that money for other good reasons in the company, like increasing salaries for employees, and that's how you can hire more senior professionals. And finally, it's much more rewarding to code than manage. In our company, those who have management responsibilities, they are either programmers or other technical professionals. And programming is much more fun activity because you feel a progress, because you create something in the end of the day. While being a manager, you can count how many meetings you participated in, how many emails you replied, how many one-on-ones you've done, but that's not so tangible result as doing software development. But make no mistake here, no management doesn't mean you operate without structure and the chaos is prevailing. And that just means that typically what managers do you transfer these roles or responsibilities to employees, or somehow you facilitate in another ways. David Marquette, the captain of a nuclear submarine called Santa Fe, transformed his 135 sailors crew to one self-managed team. And he created a culture where all decisions are made by his crew, and it only reported its intentions. Of course, the major decision when to launch a torpedo, captain remained to himself, because it's the most important, I think, decision in the submarine. But Santa Fe became the most successful submarine in the whole US Marines, with the lowest turnover rate. And that's a huge achievement. Before Captain David Marquette, the crew would rotate 100%. So after each mission, they would just run away and never return back. And before him, it was the worst evaluated ship in the whole US Marines. So it took a half a year for a captain to turn everything around. And Santa Fe started gaining best evaluations in official inspections. And this experience is described in this interesting book, and is very good example how such regulated domain like nuclear submarine powered by nuclear reactors, and where any decision can cost people lives, can implement no management ideas. David Marquette calls it a bit differently. He calls it transformation from follower leader to leader, and he defines it very well. So the core of this model is to give employees control over what they work and how they work, and it means letting them make meaningful decisions, and competence and clarity is basis for it. And that is the best definition I found about explaining what no management is. So if you still have doubts what it is, then just read this definition one more time. So what do we need to transform from a typical hierarchical organization where command and control is a common culture to no management organization? So at first, let's agree what actually managers do in organizations. And we do actually a lot of things. So hiring, firing, conflict solving, reviewing results, giving feedback, yeah, and so on. A lot of responsibilities you see in the slide. And if we wouldn't do some of them, we like this airplane without engines would just crash. So in the beginning, I don't imagine no management company without small autonomous teams. So autonomous teams is, I think, a basis for that kind of organization, where the team has all the needed skills to perform a job for them or a goal. And it's not a surprise, it's an outcome of agile movement, which brought this idea. And it's no surprise that a lot of companies have implemented it. And by having that kind of setup where like we have a company with small autonomous teams, we can move already some decisions to the team level. To be a true agile company is not easy, and a way to it is also long, and you need to transform. But the thing is that the way is very clear. We have manifesto, we have methodologies, we have a lot of books written, we have best practices, a lot of other companies have tried it. So everything is very, very clear how to go to and to become agile company. But how to become no management company, that's a different story. So there are not so many books written about it. There are not so many good articles. There is no methodologies. So we are, I think, at the beginning of this movement. And what companies do is they just experiment. And we are already experimenting for 9 years. But the best practice, which turned out to be working quite well, is committees. So the whole idea about the committee is that you have small groups of people. It could be from different kind of units, different kind of teams. It's usually like 3-5 people. And they take care of some very certain area. So for example, in Visma, we have 9 committees. And they are responsible for such areas as competence development, company culture, premises, internship, even benefits, leisure after work, and so on. So these committees, they have a budget, and their responsibility is to represent the voice of the whole company and to use that budget as efficient as possible. And having that kind of setup, we can transfer even more responsibilities to our employees. But still, as you see, there are some areas which we need to think how to implement to get rid of those responsibilities or transfer them to employees themselves. And we still, need to find a way how to adjust salary, for example, for people, or like fire someone if he's not working well. And that's actually the tricky part, how to do it. But one way which I really liked, and how the company does it, and you will be surprised at first what this company do. It's not some fancy startup, not a tech company. It's actually a company which is processing tomatoes. It's called the Morningstar company, and now it has the biggest tomato processing factory in the world. They earn close to $1 billion per year, and they satisfy 40% of the whole US processed tomatoes demand. And they grew very fast, and from the beginning they implemented their idea to be a company without managers. And they work in truly self-managed way without managers. So how do they do it? They decided that the process, which is called colleague letter of understanding, could replace this need. And it's a document where each employee states their personal commercial mission. They define how they will achieve it, how they will measure it, when they will achieve it. And they define a circle of other employees who are influenced by this mission. And once they define these letters, they make it possible for everyone to check those letters. So anyone in the company can check anyone's colleague letter of understanding. They have some period of time when they give feedback to each other. So there are some iterations when they adapted those letters. Based on these letters, they evaluate each other. So it's not the managers who does evaluation, but they evaluate each one. And not to surprise, their org structure looks like this. Here you see the employees and their commitments given to other employees. And the thing is that the more we become a management company, the more the structure becomes fluid and ever-changing. And that's actually really good because company then can adapt much faster to changing environment, which is an opposite to hierarchical companies with command and control style. 50 years ago, hierarchical companies was, I guess, a good solution because then we had different times. Then we had information flowing in the speed of the landline, like telephone line. But now the information flows at the speed of internet. Certainly hierarchical structures are not working anymore. And if 10 years ago we were discussing about how we can flatten organizations, right? But nowadays more and more we face no management, self-management, organic or adaptive organization designs. A huge disruption, I think, happened with the tools we use because of the internet, because of such amount of information. We can process it faster. We can digitize and automate our processes. So if earlier manager had to approve, paper bills or paper requests, now we just tap on the phone and that's it. And I remember in 2017 we would report hours in some legacy system which we inherited from our colleagues from Scandinavia. And our business model is such that we can't get away from it. We need to report hours, and at the same time it's regulated by European Union that all the companies has to facilitate reporting hours for the employees of each company. But the thing was that everyone hated that because it was a process where you need to, it takes a lot of time and it takes even more time for those who were approving these hours. But what happened in our case is that those who were the most annoyed by this process, they decided to make a tool much better than we had before. And that's how we now, more than 3 years, are don't have any issues with reporting hours, and no one is complaining about it. And additionally, this tool became one of commercial products we also sell. And yeah, we touched agile teams, autonomous teams. We touched committees when we transfer decisions to employees. We touched peer-to-peer reporting, which the Morningstar company implemented, and digital tools and automation, which also makes it more possible to do nowadays. But the true no management companies, do they even exist now? Or is it something in the future? And to become a company without managers, I think one of the key things is that employees should be driven by intrinsic motivation, not because of the salary. I guess you have read a lot of you have read this book, Daniel's Pink Drive, and he explains about intrinsic motivation, how we can achieve it, experiments, researches. And that kind of organizations are open source communities, of course, because they don't get any salaries. They work based on volunteering, and the main reward is the work they do. And now imagine a media company which produces newspapers, magazines, and books, where thousands of employees work without any managers. There are no deadlines, no meetings, no decisions from above. And it's actually a very successful company. It creates 3 million of pages each month, and there are 20 billion reviews or views each month as well. And you might have guessed, this company is Wikipedia. And it's not only that it uses 100% open source software, but the content is created the same way as open source products. But Wikipedia has one problem. And that problem is that Wikipedia only works in practice. In theory, it can never work. And the same we can say about no management organization. In theory, it looks really bad, and no one would invest in such company, right? But the practice is different. It has already proved to work better than traditional companies. And like Wikipedia shouldn't work in theory, the plane shouldn't fly without engines, right? And if we would design a plane without engine which reaches the height of airliners, we wouldn't even think of that. But 2 years ago, a glider called Berlan did exactly that. It has reached the edge of the space without an engine, and it flew up to 22 kilometers height. And how is it possible? And how you could adapt no management ideas? I'll leave it to yourself to find out. So thank you for attention. Now I'm ready for questions.
Thank you, Agnes. And I again encourage everyone to ask questions in the YouTube chat. And we already have a couple. So the first one by Arturas is, what is a typical decision-making workflow? is the whole team involved, or is it only the seniors that decide? I think this same question can also be applied to committees, like how the committees themselves function.
Yeah, so first of all, how we elect committees. When we started, committees were elected by people, so by other employees. And there were no limitations on who can be in the committee. But the thing is that usually it's people elect those who know the best. So it might be that the committees become like more experienced people, or those who were longer in the company because they just are better visible in the company and so on. And now once we had this all this setup, and we've been already for few years with the committees, we have a rule that at least one committee member should change in the committee, so that there is some rotation because of the new ideas and of course possibility to become a committee member. Each committee they announce when they want to change, when they need to rotate, and then anyone applies to this committee. And then what the committees do, then they have like a list of candidates, and then they do some interviewing, and then they decide who will become a committee member. So basically that's the idea, how you can get into the committee.
How does the committee decide who joins them? Is it a vote, or
yeah, they vote. Yeah, they vote.
I could also imagine, in these kind of scenarios, that some stronger personalities could win in these discussions. Have you experienced such issues? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's actually like in any team. It could be that someone overrules others, but still in the end everyone has a voting right and has one vote. So I would want to think that in the end a democracy in committees win.
Gotcha. We have another question by Laimonas. He says, on top of clarity and competence that were mentioned by Marquette in his book, what are other three criteria, prerequisites, without which no management approach cannot succeed?
So why Marquette gave these as main pillars, clarity and competence. So the idea is that you can't take decision if you don't know the bigger picture. So you need to get a lot of inputs. So that's why we need clarity. And the competence, of course, it's a no-brainer. You need to be competent to make a good decision, right? So these are two according him, and I also do agree that this is very, very important ones. But it's the idea that with those two pillars, you set up everything. So basically, if you have a committee and they are making a bad decision in the end, so it means either they were lacking competence, either they were lacking some clarity or bigger picture. So they might like make a mistake, and that's not a big problem because that's how they learn in the end. But what could be other free things? I think, yeah, as I mentioned, the basis is autonomous team. Without autonomous teams, you can't do much because it's like a cells in the company. Yeah, and then it's yeah, a matter of how much company is ready to give responsibilities to employees. That's also important, because if the company is not ready to give some, more important responsibilities, then you can't just implement it, I guess. Yeah, so I gave 2 additional.
Okay, and if you'll come up with a third one, I'm sure we're gonna share it in our meetup.com discussions.
Yeah.
That were all the questions that we had. Thank you again for this presentation. And now we're gonna go on to Vidas.
All right, so hello, boys and girls. It's of course not that fun to be watching at my screen instead of people sitting in front, but let's try it. So yeah, the topic, a fun one, and I thought like I should bring kind of a fun story also. I brought a story about co-design. That's the first lame joke I brought to you. It's not about co-design, actually, it's about organization design. But the point I wanted to make today is telling a bit of a story how I progressed through my career in leadership or / management, and what kind of steps were taken and what kind of challenges were met during that journey. And it's gonna be a bit fun, at least I hope. And I call it like 5 steps to epiphany. Actually, it's not epiphany. It's 5 steps to epiphany by me, Vidas, Vasiliauskas. And you know what the hell? It's actually 5 steps to exit. And actually, because there's a bit of drama in the end, my journey just finished in my previous company. So I'll tell you all the details. No worries. But it kind of ends with the exit. So sorry. The first thing is, like, I started as an engineer. I still treat myself an engineer, but I started as an engineer in my previous company. I was privileged to join Markets IT as an engineer, and my goal was to get a team, set up the local operations in Vilnius, get more people on board so we can accomplish quite a few things in the future. And by starting, of course, it was, as Agnes mentioned numerous times, there is always the word code. This is why I put code in my presentation as well, because we tech leaders or tech specialists, we like to code. And apart from coding, I should have been caring more about who should I get into that team. Of course, getting engineers is the easy part, because now I'm not doing that anymore. And I think getting variety of different specialities of people is way harder than just getting engineers. But this time I will focus more on engineers. So I thought at the first, it's the first step to the organizational design. But back in the day, I wasn't thinking about organizational design. I was just thinking, so who should I work with so it is fun, and I mean we can do predictable things, and we would value each other as professionals. And these were like kind of the ideas that build the foundation for starting that simple small one team design, and that I call it like I should get people who get people, and get people, by saying get people I mean maybe a bit of extrovert kind of personality, maybe a bit of achiever personality, a little pack of wolves. So that would be fun, right? And I was thinking, well, these are kind of those could be likely minded people where we could code, have fun, and altogether this is what we would call work. but you know, this get people, it's actually the right word would be here. Just, you know, I started defining the culture, and it is a foundation of any organization. I think even more nowadays, it's a foundation of organizations, because the good part is that that culture can, you know, do a lot of things for you for free if you do it right. And then how do you do it? There are probably like millions of ways how you want to expose your culture. From my side, I thought, you know, what the hell, I will not go, you know, nuts on getting something written on paper or getting a big picture on the wall. So what I did is just simply show an example that I live the values that I preach, expose people to those values, and by expose people, I mean, if there is an opportunity or a chance for someone to experience the culture, let them have it. Like if there is a decision that requires to be made, and if that decision can be supported by the culture, let people practice it. And the sooner they start doing it, the better. And about the word the sooner, everything the sooner usually can be the better, unless you don't know a lot of things. When you know things that you, for instance, need people, and those people will probably grow in your organization and maybe eventually will help you grow that organization, you start thinking like, I should build their career path from hiring moment, not when they are on board, not when they're done with their trial periods or first or 2 years in the company. I thought like, if I hire someone, I should look like, what are they going to be in like 1 year and 3 years? What's going to be different with that person? What kind of skills and passions I can observe from my short time on the interviews and small get-together chit-chats, so I can figure out, you know, if this is a person who has, you know, the long career path in here. And actually, this was a very maybe lucky, I would say, point, because later on, all these things about culture and looking from building up from the start got a few positive effects. And first, the best part is, no matter how shitty your design is, we're live streaming. If somebody says, Vidas, stop saying word shit, I will. But until then, I will continue. Sorry for that. And self-curing design is very good, because culture cures it. You can make wrong teams, you can hire some wrong people, but if the culture is there, it will fix it. Wrong people will get ejected, wrong team designs will fall down and will get assembled again in the right manner. The second thing is, it's like gravity. Big objects attract other objects. It's just laws of physics. I'm not saying like you should hire big people, but maybe you should if they are good, but you should hire big professionals who attract other good professionals. And this is essential, because then hiring can become, you know, easy. And I've never heard actually somebody saying, oh boy, I like hiring, it's the easiest part of my job. Never. Maybe there is someone from HR team because they like it, that's why they choose it. But from engineers, I never heard it. Then the another positive effect was homework being done early. It's not like I'm the first row geek that wants to do everything right, and I'm like probably more times wrong than right. But doing homework early gets you some freebies in the future, and those freebies I'll tell you later about. And then mindset alignment. The last point is, it's kind of similar to this. If the design is not right, the culture will cure it. Same as with the mindset. If there are decisions to be made, if there are some conflicts to be calmed down, culture can help. And if people are aligned, you need less communication, less friction. And in the end, it means less dependencies. I'm quite nuts about efficiency and dependencies. You'll see throughout the presentation. But I think the less dependencies, the better. I live the lean values. Then we go on. Step 2. I hired the team. Everything's working nicely. We're doing good stuff. We're outputting the results. And the team was actually, I didn't tell you, the team was software engineers who are working mainly on rich client-side applications for markets. Those were trading applications, complicated, blinking, everything's happening, numbers scrolling. but it was called like a front end team. Still, the front end was so big that it had a back end, a back end of front end. And then there were back end, which was other teams. So we had like going those challenges on daily basis. And then, well, I was still very passionate on building big things and tackling bigger things. So I thought, well, we could do more. I think we could do more. And we could do more by having broader skill sets and having maybe more muscle. And by more muscle, maybe it's just more people or more senior engineers or whatever you call it. For me, it's just more muscle to output more results. And the idea was about overall what is now becoming more, maybe it's already a standard, but I see this as still coming to some trend, like T-shaped professionals, where you're not like specializing in one small vertical, you're like specializing, you're best at something, but still you have like left and right, which are a bit of other skill sets. And then it means you're a bit more versatile. And then when I thought about this challenge, like how should I muscle up and do bigger things, it was a bit of, limitations, because you're limited when you cannot do a lot if you have a fixed budget. And I thought, what can we do so we can grow without affecting other people or affecting the budget? The right choice was what would gangsters do? Like if there is a one drug gang who wants to become bigger, what it does? Well, it tries to look at it first looks around and then finds the people who they like, and then they assimilate and consolidate. And by assimilate, I mean they try to convince the people that they are likely minded, and then try to get them on board. This sounds probably a bit crazy, and this is what we didn't do. Of course, we're not gangsters or something, but I just looked around and I saw that there are other people and other teams that are doing similar things. And if we start going with a T-shaped professional everywhere, we will get big benefits. Like we will become a bit more likely minded, and then we will be able to join forces. And that's not about building organizational hierarchical structure, it's about joining forces. So the bigger challenges become easier, because, like in democracy, it's if you're only one, it's hard to convince somebody. But if you do the method where you take the stick, go punch somebody in the head, you say, are you with me or are you not? If he's with you, now you're two people going with the sticks and punching other people. So maybe it works that way. But again, that's a bad example. You should not do this at work. No punching people. So by looking around, assimilating more people, what we did was natural full stack teams. And by full stack teams, we saw that, okay, there's now instantly more of us who can do bigger things. And then this, the word I just mentioned, us, what I really hated about the situation where there are functional teams is like, if there's a front end and back end team working, I'm most definitely sure usually somebody says, there is us and there is them. Us, the front end, them, the back end. And this separation, I don't know, for me personally, it sucks. It shouldn't be separated. It's us all together. We're part of something bigger. We're working towards the same goal. It shouldn't be solved only in the T-shaped form as a full stack team. There are other solutions, but I think it's the more of a problem of people thinking us and them. And after doing this full stack teams, trying to be more similar, we got few benefits. One, it was reduced bus factor. The bus factor is how many people can get hit by the bus in your team and you can still function. That's my favorite one. And of course, usually somebody can tell you, oh, our bus factor is 0. It means anybody gets hit by the bus, that's it, your team is done. So we increased that one. At least 2 people were able to be hit by the bus and we could still function. That was fun. The other thing was bench time. I call this thing bench time because in any work, assignment, function, task, project, there is usually the good stuff and the shit work. Sorry to say, but there is always some shit work to be done. And the biggest part what I hate about this is in traditional organization, you would see the most junior guys and gals getting the shit work all day long. Oh, who should do this shit work? Oh, there's, Amy and John, they should do the shit work. Cool. And then there's always constant stream of people getting the shit work, and then there's another stream of people getting the good work, the goodies. So this is not fair, and I think the bench time works very nicely here, because the more people you have likely minded, meaning more people can exchange tasks, and then if somebody did a bit of shit work, then he or she is entitled to do a bit of a good work. And this way you can swap people just the same way as basketball team swaps people from the bench. So you get somebody to rest. And this it gets the motivation a bit. It's not top solution, but it gets the motivation a bit up. So this is good. The last one, actually the previous, before the last one, is faster value stream. The full stack people get value faster. I wouldn't go everywhere and put this idea, because some products or solutions or organizations require specialists, because it requires deep understanding and deep work. But if you're building something internally, you don't need like some very specific user experience experts on your team. You can do that. Maybe you need them everywhere, but you can still do it. If it's internally, you can do it with a full stack people going from the database to the front end. And then the value stream becomes extremely fast, because it's less dependencies. Less dependencies, faster value stream. It's not better quality, but it's faster. And I'm a dependency hater. That's true. It's the second time I'm mentioning dependencies in the slide deck. And then we did all this T-shaped full stack professionals. We got our team grew from 8 people, I think, to 12 in few months, and we got a bit more of people joining after that, so it became like maybe 14 to 16 people. That was already nice, because we could accomplish a lot, and we could transform our products way faster, and we could tackle more challenges, which were big ones. But then I realized that fine, we don't have like a very structured organization, we don't have like a lot of hierarchy, but there was something happening not correct, not right way. And what I started observing was like the communication patterns. The same communication pattern doesn't work to all the cases. And me being an engineer, I thought, oh, this is like, you know, network topologies. Different patterns can be applied to different use cases in communication. And people interact with each other, but they require some sort of, you know, setup to be efficient and fulfill the goals of that communication. So then there is this thing that sometimes there is no communication between people. So you need to facilitate the connectivity. You need to make sure that those, you know, words reach other people, and people talk from time to time so they can solve issues. And by facilitating connectivity, I think it's not only about internal, not only about your team or teams or department, it's also about everything else. And maybe it's even about external communication patterns that involve different stakeholders, customers, advocates of customers, intermediaries, agents, everyone who is somewhere in the business line. So you need to look at those communication patterns, who in your team interacts with whom, and how they get work accomplished, and where the communication is in that picture. And the last thing is, as I mentioned before, each communication line should have like a purpose. Why these teams are communicating to each other, why this team is getting things pushed to other team, why they have these contracts, why somebody wants to interfere with team members if that person is not even part of the team. So a lot of different things. And I'm not saying yes or no, bad or good, but I'm saying you just need to look into it and recognize what's happening. And I started looking, and I realized that there are plenty of, you know, problems if you take only one pattern. Since I had only words in my slides, I thought, well, Vidas, let's put some images in here. So finally, 4 images for you, and not to burn your eyes. And these are all 4 network topology patterns. Maybe not all, but first 4 topology patterns that I found in Wikipedia. And then all of them can be applied to human communication. First one, it's a bus, it's a messaging bus, and it's just a synchronous communication which can be used for, let's say, announcements. If there is a leadership or a manager or a person who is responsible for a group of people, and some knowledge needs to be communicated, You can send it via bus communication. You just send it as an email, as a board announcement. You just get the communication out through the door, and it reaches all the nodes. And then it can be one way or two way. It doesn't matter. But then it's like you announce something, the information needs to be well structured and well thought through. And of course, it doesn't need to be spam. Nobody loves spam. But that same way, it won't work if you have a team which needs to take work from other teams or other external customers. So what I call here is task ingestion or work ingestion. So before, when we started growing the team, I noticed that a lot of team members are getting, well, shitloads of work from the side, and you don't know where the work is coming because somebody just calls, hey, you know, there is this task, can you get it very fast done for me? And yeah, people are nice because they say, yeah, let's do it, you know. And all the stakeholders tried pinging and ponging the team members from all the sides, and then our backlog grew insanely and we were like handicapped on deliveries. But if you do the star topology, where there's a central node which receives everything and then routes the information the way it should be routed, it's the organizer, it works way better, at least from my experience. The third one, that's a ring one. It doesn't need to be a ring. It's only about that there are cases where a person should have someone on the left and on the right, and the communication should be tight. And this can work when, imagine now, I assume a lot of your companies are doing the same thing. If there's a new guy joining, you assign a buddy or a mentor. Of course, everyone gets a manager or a leader, but then there's someone who is closer in the function or has been through the same experience that the new joiner is going to experience. Then you assign the buddy and a mentor, and they are very close communications, and you can do one-on-ones with them. So as I said, it doesn't need to be ring. It can be just, you know, two people around you. And then the last thing, which I really, really enjoy, it's what we're doing kind of today. It's the peer-to-peer clubs or meshes or get-togethers like Vilnius Tech Leads, where you get to interact with other professionals or other people who are doing same functions as you do at your work environment. And it's like an exchange, and that needs to be facilitated as well. The more external, the better. Back in the day, we were like doing everything internally because we had so many employees around. So we had like a critical mass, which can share a lot of different things. But if you do it externally, like Mindaugas is doing with Vinted and Tech Leads, it's even better because way more diversity and way more knowledge and ideas can be exchanged. So these things needs to be recognized. I don't say this is the right way to do. I'm just saying recognize communication patterns and try to find purpose. If something's not working, maybe this is a wrong purpose or wrong pattern. Positive effects of this, well, I don't tell you positive effects. You can do an empirical study. Try inviting other managers to interact with your employees under your responsibility and see how that goes and where your progress lands. Easy path to chaos. Fourth step, not much left, bear with me, redundancy. And redundancy, usually you read it in one book or hear it in one of the tech talks or trainings that, well, every good manager eventually should become redundant. And this is probably good, not like redundant permanently, but at least being able to go on month-long vacation. And there is the scary story about a group of directors who were taken by their CEO on a yacht for a month-long vacation or something similar, and all of them thought, oh, this is amazing, this is a good things happening to us. And when they returned, the ones where organizations stopped functioning got fired because they were poor managers. They couldn't set it up themselves. So it works on self-management. And then this goes directly precisely to what Agnes mentioned. And it's all about that book, Turn the Ship Around. It's, first of all, decisions should be made by knowledge holders. And the less decisions are made on the management or leadership layers, the better. Maybe the strategic decisions shouldn't be put down, but then it means the leader or manager should know about the strategic part. Everything else that can be given away, because the more decisions you make, the more fatigued you are in the end of the day. And psychological fatigueness is a big problem. and you don't want to own too much of the decisions, and because it's risk, it's mistakes, and it's not fun. And by having those decisions somewhere else where the knowledge lies, you can go for the self-managing layer. And again, I don't want to repeat already what Agnes said. It's very nice to see teams self-sufficient and functioning and taking decisions and interacting with outside, and they have like a pattern, a policy layer, and everything just works out nicely. Mistakes will be made, but it is just way better than anyone taking all the decisions and all the management on one person. But by saying self-managing, I don't say self-leading, because I think management and leadership are two different things. Those two things can live in one person, but they're not the same. And I mean, I don't know if there was ever discussion in this meetup about what is a leader, but I'm not sure if there was somebody saying what is a manager. I recently, luckily, just found one post saying about what is a manager, and I really like the definition. It says a manager is someone who can take care of people in the team and then execute against a strategy or roadmap with predictability and quality. That's management, and that's all about getting the results, getting into the strategy, and delivering things with predictability. I don't say leadership is something opposite, but what I'm saying, leadership can have very different aspects, and leadership is still required. It can be informal leadership. It can be someone without wearing the manager's hat, but groups of people, organizations, they require leaders to point towards direction. Again, the same way as Agnes said with the plane, I wouldn't say maybe the leaders are engines of the plane. Maybe they're the cockpit, or maybe the tail rotor or rudder, or how do you call it, Agnes? You will tell me if I'm making mistakes. This is what I think leadership is more, and there is a fine gap between that. Lucky for those who are born leaders, well, not born, self-taught leaders, and then in the management, because you can function and lead at the same time. This is nice. And you always need those people, leaders, because it's not only about organization or about you. In all the times, if you're moving up the career ladder, if you're leaving the company, if you need some help, it's good to have somebody already prepared as a leader. And to do that, you need to start early. And what I usually did is like get people leadership muscles stretched. Either it's a training, either it's a meetup, either it's a presentation, a talk, a YouTube video. Just get people looking at those things and learning. The earlier the better, because in the end, when the time comes, it will be already too late. You should be prepared before that. And stretching muscle, like this example we had when we moved even to bigger team. We had so many people that we actually divided the team into small squads, self-functioning squads, which can do all the work alone. And then there was this really brilliant guy in the team, and he was really like passionate on trying out what is leadership, what is it to lead other people. He had a lot to learn, but well, then I figured out, why not? Let's get some students into the team, get that person organizing that team and making sure that they can become professionals altogether. Him being a junior leader, them being junior professionals, and I think all these opportunities are easier to achieve than you think, because you just need to be creative a bit. But it's good. Stretching muscle, it's good. That's the message. And positive effects about that. More pictures, more colored pictures this time. It's not unicorns, it's proactive organization design. That's maybe the name. That's a name I just figured out while doing this presentation, because I didn't think about it that way before. But it's proactive, it's not reactive, because I saw a lot of examples. What is reactive organization design? If something happens, like, oh, there's a manager leaving, or there is there is a problem, we're not enough of us who can accomplish a project which is already late, we need to change something, we need to get more people, or get a better manager. It never works that way. It might work a bit but it never works on the strategic way and long run. So proactive design makes sure that the future is scared off. And the last thing, I'm probably going a bit over time. I'm sorry about that, but the last step is the most important step. It's about cutting the cord, exiting, leaving. And this is what I did on my last step. It's not something I'm proud or I embrace, but I just figured out the best thing I can do in my life is somewhere else. And I decided to cut the cord. And by doing that, it's still not an action. It's also organizational design, which you're doing. And by doing that, you need to be really, really empathic. By doing that step, you need a lot of empathy, because for you, it might be already a done decision, done deal. You already know the future. But those people who will get that, what you leave behind yourself, and especially the people you were leading, also a lot of us probably have managers. If you don't have a manager at work, maybe you have manager at home, but everyone kind of has a manager somewhere. So it's all about making sure everyone stays happy. Like, how can you make somebody leave and say, oh, this was a happy event? Well, I sat down and said, like, Vidas, you cannot just, get out. You cannot just leave everything. I mean, I decided to do it in that time because it was working. And I was even able to get sick for 1 month and not go to work, and everything still was working. That was a good evidence. I didn't like the part where I was sick, but I liked the part that it was working. So I thought, now or never, right? And then I sat down and figured out, all right, so my manager will not take this as a good news. It's not good news for him. It's like, whoa, now he needs to work like more. He needs to find something, figure out something. And I said, okay, so I get the best plan and I present it. So it's a plan where he wins. The plan where I'm no longer required. My salary can be used to motivate other people who are top achievers in the company. They can get same leaders in my team and they can continue the good work. There's already enough leadership muscle, so I became redundant, and this is good. This is good news for my manager because he doesn't need to do anything. And I not only thought about the plan, I made sure the plan is executed. The same way on my people, which I led, because I figured out, like, I should do at least something so they also take it as a win, as a something that they will say, oh, this is actually good. This is an opportunity. And it's not only about promoting or getting somebody more responsibilities. It's also about leaving the structure better than it was before. So it's better. And it can last at least some amount of time. Probably a year or two is good amount of time. I will need to check if that is still lasting, so I can say my words are true. But since last time I checked, it was somewhat working. And people were living in the setup that I figured out as a plan, and maybe it was a good sign that there were some right decisions made. And positive effects of that, well, simple. This is the best positive effect right now. This is a team I'm working with. It's called Teamhood. It's the new product we're building on work and work management and team collaboration. And this is the best thing happened. I'm living my dream of having own company and doing not only software engineering. So yeah, this is a bit of story, not much theory, a lot of trial and error, but yeah, I hope somebody finds good things in this.
Thank you, Vidas. And you talked a lot about leadership and management, and Agnius said no management. Where do you land? No management, some management, all of management?
Easy to talk, hard to do. I would say I am manager to some extent. I am not no manager probably. I would like to be less, that's for sure. Because I believe also the same values that Agnes expressed. But what I really believe, and I think, I hope people will agree, I have more strengths in leadership, and leadership is the better part of it.
Cool. So thank you again for your presentation, and also thank you, Agnes. That's it for today.